In this video, I'm going to take you along with me as I update my personal build that I use for everything. That includes, but is not limited to, gaming, video editing, Photoshop, streaming, homework. I do everything on one system. I don't have a separate PC for work and a separate one for play. That just sounds horrible. Who does that? Probably people aren't cheap asses like me and are willing to spend the extra money on a complete second set of hardware. But then that means when the systems get old, you have to upgrade both. And one system. Let's just make life easier. The last time I updated my build was about a year and a half ago, and I've been itching to change some things up. So let's see what's in store for my build after a quick word from this video sponsor, which is me and my merch. If you want to support the channel while also getting something in return, check out my merch store. I spent a lot of time working with artists to bring these ideas to life. I've had people tell me to this day that they didn't know I had merch, so I need to do a better job at promoting it when I can. But that's enough self-promotion for me. Let's get back to it. Alright, so this is not going to be a completely new build from the ground up. I'm going to be replacing roughly half of the parts in my existing build. I'll share on the screen what my build looks like as of right now with the parts list, and I'm going to be replacing the case, CPU cooler, graphics card, and both SSDs. So let me go over what all is going to be new for the build. First up is the case, which honestly is the part I am probably the most excited about. This is the Deepcool CH160. Longtime viewers of the channel, y'all know I love my handles. This last year and a half, using a case without handles was devastating. No, I'm just kidding. It was alright, but I always prefer a case with handles. Even if I never went to another LAN party again, I would still want a case with the handle. It just makes it so much easier to, well, handle. This is also going to be a return to using a non-vertical tower case for me because my previous 3 cases in a row were vertical towers, and it's time for a little change from that. Don't get me wrong, I still love the vertical form factor, but sometimes you just need to switch things up. So that's the case. I'm officially rejoining the handled case master race. Now, I imagine people are going to ask me about the Deepcool products that I'm going to be using for this build update. Like, aren't they banned from being sold in the US and stuff like that? And yeah, they are, but they can still be found on Amazon. They just won't say Deepcool on them, but it's a Deepcool product, clearly. Plus, there's AliExpress, so it's not like they're impossible or even that hard to get. For the cooler, I'm going to be using the Deepcool AK620 Digital Pro. Finally, I'm going back to a thick boy air cooler. The vertical towers only supported AIOs and low profile coolers, so I used them because I had no other choice, but I definitely prefer big metal heatsinks. I really like this one because it's got 7-segment displays. It shows the CPU temperature, utilization, and the power draw and clock speed. I just love the utility of being able to look over quickly at my PC and having, all that information readily available without having to use overlay programs or like alt tab into hardware monitor or hardware info to see it. Look at the size comparison between these two. This thing is massive. It's gonna take so much room up in this tiny case, so I hope it doesn't make putting this together suck. For the graphics card, I'm going to be using the recently released Intel Arc B580. I was able to pick this up for MSRP on Newegg. As of right now, they're still sold out the majority of the time. I was actually able to buy this through an email alert, surprisingly. I was lucky to be quick enough. This isn't a big upgrade from what I was previously using, which was the Intel Arc A770. This is pretty much a minor upgrade depending on how you look at it, or it can even be seen as a downgrade. Compared to the A770, this does perform a little bit better across the board in gaming, but it does have less VRAM. It's got 12 gigs as opposed to the A770's 16 gigs. For me, 12 gigs is enough. I'm not playing games at like 4K at max settings. I plan to keep this in my rig for the foreseeable future. The only thing that would change that is if I'm somehow able to pick up an RX 9070 XT at MSRP. But if you've been following those since their release, that might be a long time away until I can get one at MSRP or close to it. The last update to my system is the storage, which normally isn't that exciting, but for me it is because what I've got right here is, to be honest, kind of nuts. In my hands are a 4TB and 8TB Gen 4 NVMe SSD. These are from a brand called Next Storage. If you've never heard of them, they're a relatively new company. They've been around since 2019, right before the pandemic, and they're headquartered in Japan. From the company history directly on their website, they're led by engineers with decades of experience working in memory storage at Sony. I did a bit of research before blindly trusting their drives with my data, and everything I've found checked out. They reached out asking if I had any projects that could use SSDs to showcase what they've got, and I said, heck yeah, I do. I'm always running low on drive space in my system. I'm what you call a digital file hoarder. I admit it, the first step is acceptance, right? I like to keep almost everything that I download onto or create on my computer forever. Sure, I back up stuff to my external drives and to my NAS and things like that, but I like to still also be able to keep as many of my recent files as possible on my main computer before I need to like purge, organize, and larger storage allows me to do that for a longer amount of time before I have to. Look, don't judge me, okay? All of you out there have your own weird traits and quirks, and this is just one of mine. The 4TB is their G series LE model, which does have DRAM, and the larger drive, the 8TB, is a DRAMless model, both TLC, NAND, fast read and write speeds, and we'll check on that later. But the plan for me is to put the OS on the 4TB drive with the DRAM and have the 8TB drive for games and content creation overflow. I'm sure I'll figure out other ways to best utilize these. I think that would just come in time because I've simply never worked with this much solid state storage before. Right now in my system, I've got two 2TB SSDs, so 4TB total, which are always filled to the brim. So I'm effectively tripling it with this combination, giving myself much more headroom. Look, some people are real life hoarders, which I am, and others are digital hoarders, which I also am. Here's the updated list with the new additions. This is definitely going to be a first for me, having a build where the storage is the most valuable parts in the build. This is pretty different from your typical content creator's build, which usually has like the newest, biggest, baddest processor and graphics card in it. Most people find happiness and excitement in that. I find happiness and excitement in PC cases with handles and storage drives that further enable my file hoarding. I'm built different. So alright, let's get the things transferred over from the old build that need to be transferred over, as well as everything else here, into this new case. Ooh, we ran into a problem. The heatsink for the SSD right there, right in the center of the screen, it's gonna hit. Like, look how big this thing is. It definitely interferes. I'll see if a picture will help illustrate it better. So look like I'm just not gonna use the motherboard heatsink, and I'll use one that's lower profile. Actually, I think I'm gonna try to make this thing work. So this is a kind of also overkill heatsink for an SSD. It's got its own fan connector for these two little fans, but it's also got, you know, heat pipe and a fin stack and everything. So this thing actually works. If this thing fits with the cooler, then this would be an awesome replacement solution. So it would stick out quite a bit, but it might clear the heat pipes. Let me see. Oh, it just barely doesn't clear it. No, just barely. Yeah, so here is the cooler where it's supposed to be placed, and here would be where this SSD heatsink is, and it is leaning forward a bit because it barely does not fit. Almost. Dang. Oh well, I've got plenty of heatsinks that are definitely smaller. This thing is pretty ridiculously tall, so close. I thought it would be narrow enough just to clear it, but I guess not. I'm just gonna use this inland one that I have laying around. So I'm curious to check out the performance of these next storage drives. So I have Crystal Disk Mark here, and I have both of the drives in the system, the 4TB and 8TB, and they're both around half-ish full. The G Series LE model, 7200, 6200 read-write, and the G Series non-LE model, 7300, 6600 read-write. Now that's just based on however Nextorage tests it, but I'm just gonna use the peak performance default test that they have in here, and we're gonna test each drive. So we'll test the 4TB drive first. The read write is 6600-ish and 6100, so a little bit slower than what they claim on here. These are theoretical synthetic speeds. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. What matters is the real world performance, which I'll check in a second, but I do want to check the 8TB drive and see how that does in the synthetic theoretical tests. So this drive has similar sequential read, but the write is a little bit slower. But that's just Crystal Disk Mark though. Let's see it now in a real world drag and drop test. All right, we're in File Explorer now, looking at both of the drives, and we've got the 4TB as my main primary OS drive, and then the secondary drive is the 8TB. So I accidentally mixed these up. I mixed their names up as to which one has DRAM and which one has not. So it's the 8TB one that actually has DRAM, and the 4TB is DRAM-less. For this test, we're just testing the speed, transferring them back and forth. We're gonna transfer from D to C first. I went to the Steam library directory, and the biggest folder I have in here in terms of games right now is Grand Theft Auto 5. It's over 100 gigabytes, 274 files across 97 folders. So I'm just going to drag and drop this over to the 4TB DRAM-less drive, and we'll see what the speeds are like. So it's starting out at 3 gigabytes per second. It's holding it decently well. Oh, there it is. Okay, so we've got like about halfway into the transfer, and then the speed slowed down to about 1.5 gigabytes per second. Oh, there we go. We're hitting the next bump here. Oh, no, it's kind of ping-ponging back and forth. I want to do another one now that I know we fully saturated the SLC cache. I want to see, because it's going to take time for that to flush, if I instantly transfer like Marvel Rivals over, what the speeds are going to be like. So it starts off at around like 2-ish gigabytes per second, but now it's going just under 2 gigabytes per second, but now it's going to slow down a bit. And Marvel Rivals is 688 files over 122 folders, even though it's smaller overall. Oh, there we go. It dropped in speed, but it's bouncing back up. And then we'll take it. Counter-Strike is about a little bit under 50 gigs, 2,796 files. All right, let's just quickly drag and drop this over and see what speeds we get. And there we go. All those little tiny files. All right, it got through them. So the speed was pretty slow. I'm not sure if you saw, it was like PNGs and like pictures and stuff like that. But once those were cleared, yeah, we're getting like 1.4, 1.5-ish. Oh, it's dropping. Is it gonna go back up? It is bouncing back and averaging out decently well. When you have like really bad quality budget SSDs, it can get really slow, like mechanical hard drive levels are slow. But we just transferred 200 gigs and that wasn't that bad. Let me keep going and see how long it takes until we reach a point where it really slows down. This camera 1 folder is 344 gigs, 251 files. Okay, so let's see. This folder is transferring more data than those 3 games that I just did earlier combined. Yeah, I think it's starting to hit its limits here. And now the speed is going to average, probably averaging like 600-ish, maybe 650 megabytes per second. And yeah, pretty much stabilized. A little bit lower now at like 550 to 570-ish. And there you go. So let's test the other way now. So I've got disk C here, and we're gonna be writing to disk D. But yeah, we're gonna start with the 100 plus gigabyte Grand Theft Auto 5 first. So dragging and dropping there. We are seeing speeds out the gate at 3-ish gigabytes per second. All right, that one's done. And reminder to myself to put all the file transfers for each of these folders on the screen so you guys can see. I don't even know. I'm not keeping track with like a stopwatch. I'm just going to use the timestamps in the video to measure it. But next, we're going to do Marvel Rivals. This drive already, I mean, it's also less full. So there's multiple factors that can affect the speed, like how full the drive is. This one does have DRAM. And so now we're gonna go right into Counter-Strike Global Offensive. And this is the one with a ton of small files, so you can see them flying through. But once we get through them, it ramps up to, let's see how high it goes up to. It's gonna hold this speed through the end there. Oh no, it's slowed down a little bit there. And last but not least, we have the 344 gigabyte LAN party storage footage. Started off at around 2-ish gigabytes per second and it dipped, but it's going back up now. Oh, is that it? We're down. Oh, there it is. All right, so 180-ish gigs remaining. So that was 160. So yeah, that was about 400 gigs written before we hit the wall that plummeted the speeds. That's the real world performance of the next storage drives. But now let's take a look at some gaming performance. So I'm not gonna be doing a full suite of benchmarks in this video. There's plenty of B580 benchmarks out there on the internet, as well as on YouTube. For this specific video, I want to show you guys how I'm going to be using the card and the whole system and how I will game with it. As you probably noticed, there are black bars above and below the footage because I do game on a 1440p ultra wide monitor, so it's 21:9 aspect ratio, 3440 by 1440. The B580 being a $250 to $300 brand new graphics card, kind of like an entry level card, right? So it already struggles with AAA titles at normal 16:9 1440p resolutions. So adding in this ultra wide, that additional pixels to it, it definitely struggles. So it needs help from upscaling tech. Any of the performance that you will be seeing on the screen is going to be about 5% lower than it would be than, you know, if I wasn't making a video and I wasn't recording. My capture card that I have does not record ultra wide resolution, so I have to use the hardware itself. So I'm using the B580's hardware encoder through OBS to record. I do have an overclock on right now. In MSI Afterburner, you cannot do any of the tuning. Like, all these sliders are completely grayed out. You have to use the Intel graphics software, which I have right here. So I'm running at the high preset, and I do have XeSS enabled, set to quality. And yep, there's all the settings. So let's check this out. So I'm going to start the benchmark. And just walking down the street, we are averaging in like the low 70s-ish. And then 1% lows is in the low 50s, like right at 50. And it depends on like what's on the screen and what's going on in the scene itself. But if I start jumping around and moving and dashing and stuff, the average goes down. So we're actually going to go fight somebody in here real quick. And we'll look at what the performance does. And do note, all the artifacting that you're seeing on the screen, that's part of Cyberpunk. Oops, I just killed a civilian. That's just part of the cyberware that I have. The FPS goes anywhere from like mid 60s to like 70s. Let's see. 1% lows is still around that low 50s. And I'm okay with this performance. Like, it's at high graphic settings, and again, a pretty large resolution for this card on a AAA title. Even though Cyberpunk is like 4 years old, it's still a demanding game to run, and you could definitely make even the newest graphics card struggle on it. But let's see. So after that, it's just shy of 70 FPS average and like the low 50s, 1% lows. I think this looks good enough, and 60 FPS on a single player game like this is fine. Again, we're working with pretty limited hardware here on a AAA title, so you gotta keep your expectations in check. All right, now we're in GTA 5, and this is online. And this is the enhanced edition, so when they like overhauled the graphics and improved loading times and stuff like that. But I have the preset set to very high, no ray tracing. There are some like ray tracing presets, but yeah, we're just doing very high. FSR 3 set to quality enabled. There is no XeSS, so I'm scrolling through them. It's just FSR. So I'm gonna drive around for a bit and we're gonna look at the performance. But we're averaging looks like, you know, mid 90s about. And 1% lows though, from all those little spikes on the frame time or the dips in the frame rate graph, is down to like 50s, the low 50s, 51, where we have 1% lows right now. So I'm actually gonna try to frame cap it. I wonder if frame capping it to 90 FPS will help. So now we can't go above 90 FPS. I'm gonna reset the benchmark. And now when I drive around, look at that frame rate and frame time graph. Look how smooth they just changed. I didn't change any graphic settings or like FSR or anything like that. All I did was cap it so that it couldn't go up to like, you know, the mid 90s like it was doing. And look at how much of a difference it made in terms of how smooth the frame rate and frame time graphs have gotten, as well as the 1% lows. Now it's much closer instead of being at like the 50s. This is Grand Theft Auto, you know, it's not a super competitive shooter. I think playing at lower refresh rate or FPS is fine. You know, you don't have to be running this game at like 200 plus FPS. I would rather prefer it to be capped at 90 and be this smooth than like try to lower the settings and try to get super high frame rate at lower graphics quality and potentially, you know, worse 1% lows. Assassin's Creed is the newest and probably most demanding game that I own right now. So I have to enable XeSS to get 60 FPS on this and play with the quality at the performance level. For the overall like graphics quality, I have the preset low, which is the lowest. And this is a ray tracing mandatory game, so you can't turn it off. You can just go low and that's pretty much it. And I do have the recording on the software encoder with my CPU because this is so demanding on the graphics card that I couldn't get a smooth recording, though it's looking like it's not smooth with the CPU recording either. I don't know what's going on with OBS. It's looking like it might be choppy footage, but you know that, I mean, I'm getting just slightly below 60 FPS average. For me playing right now, this is actually smooth. For the game footage, it might be showing it a lot choppier for you guys because OBS is just not having it. I couldn't use the hardware encoder because the B580 was just, it couldn't handle it. It said the encoder was overloaded. It's not giving me the overloaded message here with the software encoding X264 with the CPU. And this is very playable right now. Yeah, for me, 1% lows, so long as it's like, if I'm gaming at 60 FPS, as long as the 1% lows does not hit like below 30 FPS about, I say that's playable for me. And with regards to the low graphic settings, I've never been a huge stickler for like having to have the nicest, shiniest graphics. So long as, you know, the game is playable and I can get through it, like the gameplay and story is more important for me than having, you know, playing at ultra settings. I mean, it would be nice, but, you know, when you have more limited hardware, you take what you can get. I think being able to play even at low settings is infinitely better than not being able to play the game at all. Alright, the last game we're going to look at, World of Warcraft. And have you noticed a theme with the types of games I like to play? I'll give you a few seconds to guess. 3, 2, 1. If you guess open world games, then ding 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 ding, you are correct. But yeah, this is Retail WoW. Most recently I was playing Hardcore Classic, but I don't have a subscription going right now. I have like an on and off relationship with WoW, so I'm just playing the free version that they have for under level 20 characters, just to kind of showcase the performance. But taking a look at the graphics settings, so we are at 3440 by 1440. WoW works on like a 1 to 10 slider. So I have it maxed out at 10. And so far, just like sitting here, we're at over my monitor's refresh rate of 144. It's at 170. So we turn on the benchmark though. So let me go kill a few mobs real quick. And we'll see if those numbers change that much. But yeah, I think they're pretty much gonna sit around there for the most part. Oh, I didn't kill this guy. Yeah, so it's pretty consistently at those numbers. So I'm gonna take a look at what happens when we cap it, and let's see if that can make the 1% lows increase or improve them. With regards to utilization, the B580, I mean, it's only running at like 75%. The 1270K is not working that hard at all. We are using 20 gigs of RAM though, and I'm not running anything else on my computer. Well, except for OBS to record. But yeah, WoW seems to be memory intensive, but I think this is the ideal frame cap to run at least for me anyways, for this monitor. Let me kill these mobs real quick, and then we can wrap up this benchmark. But alright, that is WoW for ya. Kind of an easier game to run usually, kind of like people consider it a potato game, even though I think the graphics look pretty nice. It has improved over the years. But what the good thing about WoW that I like is that they have optimized it so that it is very accessible to a lot of people regardless of what your hardware is. But yeah, that's gonna be it. Just showcasing a few games. Let's wrap up the video now. So that's my personal rig as of the first half of 2025, and for the foreseeable future. If anything drastic changes, you'll likely hear about it in a future video, or at the very least in the weekly streams, which is every single Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific on YouTube, in case you didn't know. Come stop by and hang out sometime if you haven't yet. It's a fun time. But yeah, even though my system is not the most powerful out there, it does what I need it to do and brings me plenty of enjoyment in the games that I play at the settings and frame rates that I play them at. And that's all that really matters to me. As one of my good friends put it best,
the only benchmark that matters is enjoyment.
But I'm very curious to hear how many of you out there have a way better system than I do, and how many have worse. Sound off in the comments down below your specs. We're gonna have a small pissing contest here. And let me know how I stack up hardware wise compared to my viewers. Hope y'all enjoyed the video and found it either useful or entertaining in one way or another. I want to thank you all as always for watching and for continuing to support the channel. Big thanks to the channel members as always for their above and beyond support. Be safe out there, and I'll see y'all down in the comments as well as next stream and or video. Bye. In this video, I'm going to take you along with me as I update my personal build that I use for everything. First up is the case, which honestly is the part I am probably the most excited about. It just makes it so much easier to, well, handle. Look at the size comparison between these two. This thing is massive.